the Southern Ohio Farm Show. This is Gigi Neal of OSU Extension in Claremont County, Agricultural and Natural Resources Educator.
I'm James Morris, the Agricultural and Natural Resources and Community Development Educator for the Ohio State University Extension in Brown County.
And I'm Brooke Beam, the Ohio State University Extension Educator for Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Community Development in Highland County. And we will be your hosts for the Southern Ohio Farm Show.
Good morning and welcome to the Southern Ohio Farm Show. Today is June 3rd, 2020, and many farmers are rushing to get their crops planted before the rain. Next week, we will have a few videos submitted by local farmers to let you know how spring has been going on their farms. However, for today, we have a weather report from Aaron Wilson and a conversation about food preservation with Margaret Jenkins. Aaron, what is in store for us with the weather?
Hi there, everybody. Aaron Wilson, OSU Extension climatologist, here with this week's weather update for the Southern Ohio Farm Show. We've been blessed with some warm, dry conditions over the last several days. Thankfully, this has actually been the first two-day stretch since the beginning of April where we've seen back-to-back dry days here in Southern Ohio. So it's been quite wet for many of you, as you know. Our temperatures over the last 7 days have been averaging a bit above average across Southern Ohio, a degree or two where you see the yellow shading there, orange indicating anywhere from 2 to 5 degrees above average over the last 7 days. And that's in contrast to what it's been like over the last 30 to 60 days, where we've seen temperatures 2 to 5 degrees below average for that time frame. So that's been, difficult to shake off this spring and kind of dry out, especially when you look at the rainfall over the last 30 days. Widespread 5 to 8 inch rainfall amounts indicated in those red colors there on the left-hand figure. The pink indicating more than 10 inches in parts of Hamilton, also Butler County and Southern Claremont County, for instance, well above average for this time of the year. We should see about an inch of rain per week, and we've been well above that here across Southern Ohio. Dry weather is sort of behind us now. We've got a cold front dropping in from the north today. It's going to spawn some afternoon showers and thunderstorms. Some of those could be severe with locally heavy rain, not widespread heavy rain, but some pockets of heavier rain are possible here. That front's going to kind of wash out, provide a focal point for some showers and thunderstorms, additional activity tomorrow and Friday before another front moves through. And that's going to bring in some cooler, less humid conditions for the weekend, probably extending into Tuesday. So another nice dry period here, Saturday through Monday, maybe Tuesday of next week. Again, we're looking at highs in the mid to upper 80s the next few days, cooling down into those upper 70s to low 80s for the weekend with some less humid air. No widespread heavy rainfall, but some localized 1 to 2 inch amounts are possible. Looking at the 6 to 10 day outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, they're indicating warmer than average temperatures are likely and a slightly elevated probability for lighter than average precip. So a little bit drier than we have been for sure, which is good news, and a little bit warmer than average to help dry some things out. Hopefully we're not going to experience any extreme warmth. I don't think that's going to kind of crust in things, but we'll have to monitor that situation. Normal highs are in the low 80s with overnight lows in the low 60s. So if you'd like some more information, you can always check out Dr. Wilson's Weather at Facebook and on Twitter. You can check out our hydrologic and climate assessment on a weekly to bi-weekly basis at climate.osu.edu, or you can always hit me up with an email at wilson.1010@osu.edu. Absolutely love talking about weather and climate. So Southern Ohio folks, enjoy the warmer weather. We've certainly switched into our summer mode now with some scattered thunderstorms, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for that update, Aaron. Now we're going to send it over to Margaret Jenkins, who is our Family and Consumer Sciences Educator in Claremont County. And Margaret has a pretty important topic for most of us this year, as I'm sure a lot of us are going to have gardens out. And Margaret's going to give us some tips for food preservation and canning this year.
Hello, my name is Margaret Jenkins, and I'm the Family and Consumer Science Educator in Claremont County, Ohio. And I would like to thank James and Gigi and Brooke for continuing to challenge me to teach, or as OSU says, keep teaching during the COVID-19 pandemic. So it is time to make our home food preservation started off, and this is what we have right now, or this is what my family enjoys, and we are out of our strawberry preserves. So it's time to start with home food preservation. So here we go. Well, today we're going to discover the new COVID-19 resources available to us, learn to save the bounty of our fresh produce year long, learn what spoils food, how to use the water bath and pressure canner, and to use the principles of safe food preservation when using the water bath and pressure canner. Before preserving any food, consider the types of food your family enjoys and the usefulness of the preserved product for your lifestyle. Everybody likes different things in their family, and so you want to make sure and preserve those items that the family enjoys. The advantages of food preservation. Well, we have the food year-round. We're going to have less spoilage. We're going to reduce the microbial hazards. We can control the quality of the ingredients we put in home preserved foods and increase convenience during this period of time, and it is a great family activity. All right, we want to start with fresh from the garden produce. So we don't want to have waste done. So we want to handle food safely and preserve within 24 hours of the harvest. All right, when we harvest early morning, keep things in the shade, moist. We want air to circulate. We want mature produce, and throw away anything that's damaged. All righty, well, this one's in here a little bit about the cost of food preservation. You've got the produce and the ingredients, the equipment and supplies. There is fuel used, water used, and with food preservation, sometimes there's a freezer used, and then the cost of the pressure canner or the water bath canner, and then our time and energy. We have a lot of time available right now, so and this uses up some energy, so that's great. All right, well, these are the methods of food preservation, but today we're going to work on canning. The others we could talk about at a different period of time. All right, so water bath and pressure canning are two methods, and so how do you know which one you want to use? Well, either one, you want to start off with the basics of handling food safely. All right, we want to prevent bacteria from spreading through the kitchen. We heard a lot about this lately. We know about washing hands. We've heard about sanitizing. So this was one that in the past we had to really put a lot of emphasis on when we would teach. But now individuals are quite know that they need to handle food safely. All right, there are two methods of canning. One is with a boiling water bath canner, and one is a pressure canner. The water bath is only used with foods that are high in acid, with a pH of 4.6 or lower. And a pressure canner is used with low acid foods. So let's see what those mean. All right, so the canning method that you use is approved for the food depends on the food. All right, so foods are divided, as I said earlier, into acid foods or low acid foods. All right, so pH is less than 4.6 are generally all our fruits, tomatoes, but we must add acid to those tomatoes. Lemon juice is what we usually use. Sauerkraut and fermented pickles have the lower because acid is added to them, and foods which have large amounts of acid added to them. Low acid foods are generally all vegetables, meats, poultry, seafood, soups, and mixed canned foods. So why low acid foods have to be pressure canned to be safe? Well, because of Clostridium botulinum, or we many times just called botulism. It's because those spores, they love a moist environment, such as a canned environment. And so they require higher temperatures for the destruction in a reasonable period of time. And so that's why the pressure canner can bring it above the 212 Fahrenheit that is needed to destroy that bacteria, the botulism bacteria. So that is the reason why you need a pressure canner, because the water bath canner cannot go above 212. Boiling water doesn't go above 212. All right, so basics of home canning. Food is placed in a jar, it's heated. That destroys the microorganisms. The heat also activates enzymes in them that leads to food spoilage. And then after the air is driven out of the jar during heating, it's the lid comes back down and it's vacuum sealed during cooling. So that's the basics. All right, now this is the other major piece that we wanted to do safe food preservation is we only want to, and I mean only want to use materials that have been tested. And the United States Department of Agriculture has a complete guide to home canning, but we want to make sure we only use that literature if it has a date later than 2009. Another one that is a great one to use is So Easy to Preserve from the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension, and that's the one I like to use, and it's the 2014 edition, and so all of the recipes in here have been tested. So where were they tested? They were tested at the National Center for Home Food Preservation, and there's a website on here, homefoodpreservation.com, and you can find that link online. Another valuable online resource is the Ohio State University Extension Ohio Line fact sheets of ohioline.osu.edu. All right, new COVID-19 resources. I wanted to make sure and bring those to you. First, we're having more individuals that are wanting to can. And so if you have a pressure canner, you need to get that pressure canner gauge tested. And so we have an opportunity for you to do that with the Ohio State University Extension Office in Claremont County. I'm offering the testing of the pressure canner gauges and inspection of seals and safety plugs for the minimal cost of $5. You are, during the period of time that the office is closed, we have arranged a way where these can be inspected, and that is by an appointment. So you're going to need to contact me, jenkins.188@osu.edu, or call the 513-732-7070, and that'll get me through to either a voicemail, and I'll get back with you. We have to make arrangements for the dropping off and the picking up of the canner in a safe way during the time that we're not during the COVID-19 period of time that OSU has the offices closed. All right. Well, another great resource to help out is throughout the state of Ohio, the Extension Family and Consumer Science Educators, the food preservation team has put together some what they call office hours, and they also have a link for presentations. We've already passed the May 19th, which is on here, and so I'm basically giving you that one now at this period of time. And if you'd like to get the in-depth about jams and jellies, it's June the 2nd, canning and freezing vegetables. Now there's freezing there. June 16th, canning and freezing fruit on June 30th. Pickles, July 14th, and salsa, July 28th. Be on the lookout because there are probably going to be more offerings. These were the ones we were able to get out quite quickly, and so be on the lookout. There might be more here. All right, I want to bring up the fact that during this COVID-19, I've had some calls, and those individuals on the state team have too. We can put anything on, individuals can post anything they'd like to on the internet with a YouTube. And sometimes, many times, you'll find some unsafe methods of canning. And so what we're presenting and what the Ohio State University Extension or all cooperative extensions across the country are presenting are only the safe ways. So some unsafe canning methods are open kettle. Being able to do any food preservation in the oven is not acceptable or safe. The microwave, the dishwasher, steam, any types of special powders that somebody might come up with in an inventive way. The old zinc lids and jars with what were decorative jars we see with wire bales and glass lids. None of those are safe. Only what we'll be sharing today or through the websites and through the extension service would be tested and safe. And we want to make sure that they're tested. Okay, so equipment needed for water bath canning. That's a water bath canner there. You need jars, lids, the canner. There's a rack inside of there, and then the current safe canning recommendations. And I gave you that information at those places. Now for pressure canning, again, you're going to need jars and lids, a pressure canner with either a dial or a weighted gauge. They also have a canning rack. You need a jar lifter to pull it in and out. And again, we need to have those safe canning recommendations. All right, our jars and lids. Now, this is a period of time when all kinds of materials people are finding in their basements or their attics. So we want to make sure if we get something out, we want to make sure that it is truly a canning jar, all right? And you're going to feel around if it's chipped or nicked. We're going to toss that out only because the seal could not be done correctly. The other piece you need are the lid, the vacuum lid, as well as the band, two-piece one. You're going to need some sort of device. I use a plastic knife once this is full to be able to remove air bubbles, and then you need some clean cloths to wipe off, and then you also are going to adjust, and you're going to put this on with a safe way till it's finger tight only, and not cranked down, but finger tight so air can escape. All right, so glass or mason type, as I said to you, they're available in either what are called wide mouth, or they are available in the regular. And then they're available a half a pint. I don't believe anymore we're going to find some half gallons anymore because it's pretty tough to come by. So quarts is usually the largest one. Packing methods. Okay, there are two different packing methods, and the recipe, the tested recipe that you use will give directions for if it's available to do a raw pack, they will have both. If it's not, they might only have one, and that's the one you follow. So if it gives you options for raw pack or hot pack, you have an option. If it doesn't, you don't have an option. So raw pack means that the item is put into the jar and boiling liquid is added to cover the food, and then it's packed. And then hot packing is usually you'll have your range and the hot cooked. Strawberry jam is one that is a hot pack, and that is the hot pack method where it's heated. All right, Headspace. I want to talk a little bit about Headspace because the recipe will give you what's called the Headspace, and it will vary from 1/4 of an inch to an inch, and it depends upon the food that you're doing. Another item you need is a ruler, okay? And the reason I'd like to say to have a ruler is one of them will call for, with pressure canning, for it to be in there at an inch. And the inch actually is below the band. And many individuals say, well, I bring it to the band. Well, no, we need to make sure and measure use a plastic ruler to do that. And you want to make sure that's a real critical piece to have the correct headspace. Then processing times are affected by, again, the food that we have. So the acidity of the food, the preparation style, the thickness of the food, the viscosity of it, and all of that is taken into consideration with what period of time is needed for the food processing. So that's what and also the size and shape of the jar. So all that comes in. That's why it's real important to the recipe to be read carefully. All right, so canning fruits, they're sweet liquids that you add to it. And what do they do for it? They help with retain the shape, the color. It's not necessary for safety, so the recipe will tell you, or the directions will tell you what sort of pack to use, or if you have a choice, if you use juice or water. And then to prevent darkening, ascorbic acid helps do that. There are commercial ones available also, so darkened fruit is just not pleasant at all. Acidifying tomatoes, I spoke of that earlier. Most tomatoes have a pH between 4 and 6, 4.6 rather, which are borderline for water bath. Pints, you want to put a quarter teaspoon of citric acid or 1 tablespoon of bottled lemon juice. Quarts, you want to use a half a teaspoon of citric acid or 2 tablespoons of bottled lemon juice. We want to make sure it's bottled lemon juice because that means it's controlled with the acidity in it. A fresh lemon would not. So no fresh, just bottled. All right, so water bath canners, you see the rack there, you have the fitted lids, and then you want to make sure when you submerge your jars in it that you allow 1 inch of briskly boiling water above the tops of the jars during processing. Okay, so boiling water bath canning procedures, you start with about 6 inches in the canner. And then with hot pack jars, the water is simmering. With raw pack jars, it's hot water, and the difference is you don't want to have that clash in temperatures. Place the jars on the rack and water over the tops at least 1 to 2 inches. Add more water necessary and begin the timing when a full boil is reached. Okay. We here in Ohio don't need to worry about the altitude. We're going to use the, because we're in the range where if over 1,000 square feet, if it goes above that period of time, not period of time, but height. After processing time is complete, turn off the canner, remove the lid, and wait 5 minutes before removing the jars. Remove the jars, have them upright, usually put them on a towel. And then you're not going to disturb them for 12 to 24 hours because that takes that long to make sure that everything seals. And then once they're finished, you're going to check the seal, remove the rings from the top, and then wipe off the jars for storing. Okay, a pressure canner has a flat rack in the bottom, whereas the water bath had that little kind of like cage. It has a dial or weighted gauge. It has a pipe for venting and safety valves and safety locks and gaskets. It's just got to be a safer piece because remember we're putting pressure in that can, and so it has to be done precisely. Follow the directions exactly. Altering tested recipes in any way may result in an unsafe product. Please, we aren't going to do anything like adding extra sugar or fat. We want to make sure that our food is the size that it says in the recipe. We're not going to add any thickeners to it. Just follow the recipe precisely. No creativity in this at all. Your creativity is added after the processing when you're getting ready to consume and eat your product, but not in preparation for making shelf stable with pressure canning or even with water bath. Okay, if you're using the pressure canner the first time, you're going to make sure and read those directions carefully. You've got a gasket that you're going to get in there and follow the directions precisely. I want to alert individuals who I see a lot of old pressure canners come in, and they need to be looked at, and many times they're not able to be used if they've even been purchased at yard sales or things like that. I've seen them come in with the incorrect lid to the base. Somebody bought them for a couple dollars, but it's not worth that for the safety of your family. There's a process called venting or exhausting the canner that needs to happen with pressure canning, and you have to get all the air out of the canner, so it's called exhausting it, and it takes 10 minutes to do that. Venting the canner, and there's this piece after the jars are put in. So if you're going to be using your pressure canner, this is kind of like an introductory little piece to just alert you to some of the details. Please contact your extension office or myself, and you can work on the details of this if your directions aren't clear enough. Okay, as I said earlier, we really don't need to do the altitude adjustments here in Ohio. So you're going to use the recommended amount. You're not going to need to increase. As the altitude increases, you increase the pressure. We don't do that. We don't need to do that in Ohio. This slide is in here because I like to alert individuals. Sometimes people move or can at one place or they go to a relative or another part of the country, and the directions could be different because the altitude's different. Okay, the pressure canner is a little different because you have 2 to 3 inches of water in the canner, and then you're putting it on for that period of time, and then you bring it up to the temperature, and it needs to be at that temperature that the directions tell you for that period of time, and then you're ready to do it safely. And then when you're finished with the processing, you turn off the heat, and then at the end of the processing, and let it drop to 0, the pressure, before you try to remove the lid. Okay, remove the weighted gauge, and then open the canner carefully, remove the jar, cool the jars for 12 to 24 hours again. And then they open the canner with it away from your face because it has steam in it. And then we want to store our canned foods in a cool, dry place. This picture shows them with the band on, and the band needs to be actually off, to take the band off, and then identify what your product is. And then I always put the date on it also. I many times put it on the lid. You want to store your canners dry and with paper, and also both of them need to be dried and cleaned up before you put them away. So in summary, canning food, it's a good way to preserve the harvest. Gotta have to make sure and do it safely with the correct canner for acid or low acid. Make sure we acidify those tomato products, and we don't start timing our until the water is at a boil in canning or at that temperature it needs to be in the pressure canner. Want to make sure we do exhaust the canner, and then remember we talked earlier about the headspace. So thank you, and questions that you might have, Margaret, that's me, Margaret Jenkins, jenkins.188@osu.edu, and there's keep watching for information on our blogs and also at our website, so you can go ahead and preserve food safely this summer. Enjoy and safe food preservation.
Thank you, Margaret. We appreciate you continuing to teach and share ideas for how to preserve your locally sourced food. Tune in next week for another new episode of the Southern Ohio Farm Show, where we will discuss timber sales, caring for your dog, and visit with local farmers for a spring planting report. Have a great week and be safe.